Hello, it's the 31st of October, and I have to say that the last trading day of the month is not my favourite day to trade. I say this a lot, but quite often on the last day of the month you see counter trend reversals, and not always a trendy day. It's quite exciting day. You also have the month end fix and FX, which can cause some pretty one-way moves around dollar demand. So it's just one of those days. Good day to look at crypto and where we are at, though, because at the moment, last week on the 25th of October, we hit 72 in the fear and greed index, which is the last time we hit 72 was all the way back at the previous high, November 2021. So if we look at where that is in the Bitcoin chart, you can see this is November 2021. That was where we were the last time the fear and greed index tagged 72. So potentially we've reached, because we still don't have the ETF announcement, I mean, there's still the possibility that they could delay it longer. I still think, for me, this chart is very bullish, but when you get excessive greed or FOMO, it usually points to, even in the strongest uptrend, a bit of a consolidation point. So I'm still of the opinion around this 35,000 price level, there is room for a marginal new high, especially with new month tomorrow, the Fed tomorrow. I wouldn't be surprised if we, did one of those Bitcoin tests of the highs where you make a high and then you, like here, in March, we made a high, slightly higher high, and then reversed. When we made a high in November, we made a high, slightly higher high, and then reversed. So why should we be caution here? Because if it breaks out, just don't be expecting it to make a really, bigger new swing. I think that we've kind of priced in all the ETF anticipation now, and we really need to kind of focus on buying pullbacks if we can, rather than breakouts in this range. I think it's a little bit dangerous. There is one other fear and greed index that I look at, which is the Centix one. And if we take a look at the Centix one here, we can see that we are in the red zone, where previously we have seen reversals as well. So again, we just need to be a little bit careful in Bitcoin at the moment, and I would really like to see this drop down. Let's close all these. Drop down. Now this is the fear and greed index since 2018, and you can see that 72 isn't the all-time high. It might be the high that we reached last time we saw a really nasty reversal, but we have been all the way up to 90, 92, and then we have seen quite nasty pullbacks after that happens. It's also really good for predicting bottoms as well. One thing I will say about this index, when it predicts highs, is it's usually a few days later that this index reverses. So Bitcoin prices tend to move first, but that's where we are then in Bitcoin, still potentially in a zone where we kind of need to see a little bit of a consolidation or some back and fill to give us kind of safer new long entries at this point. The other thing I think is, if we continue to squeeze, if we can hold above this 35,000 zone and we continue to squeeze higher, 42,000 to 44,000 is kind of my next target zone that I'm looking at. So at the moment we are consolidating very nicely. For me, when this daily 20 moving average catches up, or I can say a kind of really nice low pattern or a breakout, I don't think it's a terrible idea for a short-term trade. But if you're looking at this as an hodl investor, just be a little bit careful that this isn't one of those Bitcoin false breakout new highs that comes all the way back again. Bitcoin really likes those. again, in ETH, let's move on to ETH. Still sideways consolidation in ETH at the 200-day moving average, and certainly not in the nice kind of breakout uptrend that it has been in. Now, what you see in ETH and altcoins very often after a big Bitcoin move is the people diversify, move their profits out of Bitcoin, so Bitcoin will make a big move and then it stalls and people will sell that and move into something else for the kind of follow-on trade. I have to say, be very careful when you're picking this, because ETH dollar, for me, sideways at this 200 moving average, could still see a bit of a bigger pullback. I think it's potentially a pretty nice breakout, but as I said before, only really above 1909 am I going to get kind of comfy with more upside here for ETH. And then I think, yes, 2,500 and 3,000 are still the targets. So no change there. I would say when you are thinking about getting out of Bitcoin into something else, always look at the chart against Bitcoin, not just against the dollar. So for example, here, if we were going to rotate out of Bitcoin into ETH, you kind of want to be in a chart that you want to look at the chart, make sure it's something that you want to buy. And for me, this ETH Bitcoin chart, although we've lost the weekly 200 moving average, which has previously been pretty good resistance, and I think we've got further to fall to 0.046 in ETH against Bitcoin, which is where this correction would be a pretty nice equal measured move before I'm looking for this to turn up again. Also, maybe 50% of this first swing. Well, the 61.8 is here. Now, potentially, you know, these previous lows, let's take all this off for a minute. These previous lows here and this 50% level are a little bit of a bounce level at 0.052. So I wouldn't be surprised if ETH has a little bit of a recovery bounce. But I would only get excited about this back above the weekly 200 moving average. And whilst we stay underneath it, I still think sell rallies and further to go. So no ETH for me at the moment. Let's take a look at Ripple. Now in Ripple, here we go. We've had a pretty nice move. In fact, Ripple this week has kind of been one of the better performers. Now we had an upside target on a break from this consolidation of 0.62, and then hopefully a further upside target if we can hold above 0.62 of 0.68. 0.68 for me is the really big one. So we've hit this first target. It's month end. This again I think is one of those levels where unless we can hold above it, we could see some consolidation and a little bit of a bigger pullback. I am bullish Ripple, but on the 4 hour and on most kind of lower time frames, we're a little bit stretched here at this point. You want to see a little bit of a bigger pullback before we continue higher. On the daily, all good, but as we head into month end, this is just one of those levels. Now, this is not for me a sell setup. I just think we here could see some pullback and some consolidation. Now, if we look at this on a 4 hour, potentially, you know, on a pullback, you could pull back to previous swing lows. We could also potentially pull back here to these previous. Support becomes resistance, resistance becomes support, and if we see a bigger pullback in other markets, we could come back potentially 50 or 61.8. We're only going to be doing that pullback if we lose a 236 retrace, and at the moment that's at 0.6. So I kind of use these as a step ladder. You know, back underneath this 236 fib, we're going to come back a few. But if you're hodling this and you're looking at it, I would say as long as we stay above 0.56, we look pretty good to keep going higher in Ripple dollar. But we have reached one of those consolidation levels. Now, a close and some sideways consolidation above 0.62, that would be a really good sign. We could buy a pullback from there, and then we'll look for 0.68 next. So consolidation level in Ripple as well after hitting first target. Okay, now we're going to look at some coins we have not. First one we're going to look at is Mina, a chart that everyone is talking about. Now, this is a really nice, how long have we been making this bottoming pattern? Really quite a long time. And previously you can see that this weekly 50 moving average was pretty tough resistance, and we kind of washed through it, struggled with it. That's a bit of a problem now. But for me, I have to say, if I look at the horizontal levels, if we can hold above this weekly 50 moving average and launch from it, I think that we're in much better shape. And that weekly 50 moving average would also mean the daily 200 moving average. So we've had a really nice big swing. So we're going to go low to high. Again, we're going to use these fibs like a step ladder. We're underneath the 50% level, so 61.8. Potentially, we could come all the way back to 0.48. So I would be in this chart, I would be sitting on my hands and waiting for some kind of bottoming pattern and then a reversal. And 0.58, 0.6. Potentially, this could be where we do it. If we look at it on an hourly, how are we doing here? Yeah, this is one of those where I kind of really want to see a solid reset of the daily before I get involved in a long. Now, if you're already long in Mina on this breakout above the 200 moving average and above, you know, this is a proper sort of short term, at least, trend reversal. And if we hold above this 200 moving average, we should see more upside. I just don't think this is quite reset enough. What I would like to see is this 4-hour reset as well. And potentially that would mean one more swing lower before it heads up again. I do like this. I'm just not sure I would buy it right here. It needs a little bit more consolidation. Chiliz. Haven't looked at Chiliz for a while. In fact, let's look at let's just look at it against the dollar rather than perpetual futures. Now, I'm going to zoom out here on a weekly chart. This has not yet really reversed the weekly trend. So when I look at a chart that's bouncing in a downtrend, I have two targets usually. Back to the 20 moving average, or 50% of the most recent swing. And then if it goes beyond that, I look for the previous highs and lows. And the previous highs and lows in Chiliz are going to be quite a nice magnet level up here at 0.085. Here on the daily, this is making quite an interesting bottoming pattern, a very nice double bottom or rounded retest. So we tagged the low, made a nice rounded retest. We've broken the pivot level in the middle. Support becomes resistance. That's working really well. So yeah, this looks for me pretty good for more upside. And my next upside target would be around these highs and lows and the daily 200 moving average. Now, in a correction though, they're very often, once we make these bigger corrections, they're very often three waves. I think we can see three waves here, so as long as this makes a new high, look for it to keep going. But we may be in one of those levels, month end and everything, where we do a bigger kind of 1, 2, 3 before we go up again. And I would say that as long as these highs, which hold around 0.64, or this swing low here around 0.62, hold, we're all good. If we make a bigger three-wave correction here, I think that would bring us back to around 0.6, and that would be okay too. So sideways consolidation zone in quite a nice bullish setup for a pretty decent counter trend bounce. And yeah, 0.064 on the upside next for Chiliz. It's looking really good. Here's the chart. This is not a request. This is one that I'm thinking is quite an interesting chart. Here is Stella on the weekly. If I put my Heikenhashi on, second week in a row green. And I think this is also making a pretty interesting bottom off the weekly 50 moving average. And I wasn't too interested last week underneath the weekly 20, but we're back above it again. And I think this is making pretty decent moves. And this is also a pretty good look on the daily of a inverted head and shoulders pattern with a target on the upside of the previous highs. So this, for me, XLM, I'm not usually a big fan of these old school coins. You know, I feel like the ones that have been around forever, you know, unless they're in the news and they're actively working on them or doing something, yeah, they're not, you know, it seems to be the most, there are so many coins, it seems to be that the most newer projects seem to get much more attention. But this is a pretty nice, again, low, rounded retest, inverted head and shoulders pattern, all of these daily moving averages bunched up. This is really set for a pretty nice, another move higher. Now, I would like to see the weekly 200 moving average tested. And in fact, if we did a big ABC here, we could give ourselves a target all the way up at 0.24 of the 236 fib, and that's all the way from the highs in this one. So yeah, you know, for me, a bullish cross of your weekly moving averages and a pullback to find support and then a turn higher is a really nice long setup. So that's what I'm looking for. So first target now is going to be 0.13. Then these previous highs and lows around 0.16, 0.17, and then 0.24 on the upside in XLM. Now, if we look low time frame, have we got an entry? I think we're just breaking out here on the hourly this morning. So yeah, as long as buy pullbacks, whatever time frame you're trading. For me, you know, hourly or 4 hourly on a move like this. Hope it doesn't turn into a false breakout, and XLM has some really nice upside. Okay, now I've got a bunch of more requests, so let's take a look at those. First off, we're looking at INJ, which is Injective, which of course has been one of the ones that I have been pretty excited about. Let's find it. Here we go. Injective. Now, let's go to the weekly on this one, because we had a couple of measured move targets, didn't we, in Injective? The first one was the 61.8 level at 10.85 and then 14.22. So we've reached the second one. So this is another chart where we are likely to see a little bit of consolidation here. And we're going to stay bullish. We would only be bearish if we went back underneath this 618 level at 10.85. But this is one of those levels where we could see a bit of a pullback. We'll see a lot of profit taking potentially. And the daily 20 moving average is all the way back here at 10.85. Now, we haven't had a red Heikin-Ashi or a reversal candle yet here. I think it looks like it's trying one, and we may see, in fact, a little bit of a, with these hourly moving averages bearish cross, we may even see a little bit of a, potentially a head and shoulders pattern here. That would point to that bigger correction. But clearly we can see where the support is. A daily a daily or 4 hour close underneath 13.2 would point to a bigger correction in Injective. Otherwise, a close and hold above this 14.22 gives us really nice more upside targets. Now, when I'm not sure where it's going to keep going to, I usually have fib targets. So here, because when I look at this on the weekly, this looks like 3 waves. And for me, 3 ways, you go beyond 50%, your usual target is 786, which is at 20, and that would be quite interesting because that's also where this swing would be 1.618 of the first swing. And so for this, as long as we hold above 13.2, then I'm looking for 16.07 and 20 next. So, but this is a consolidation level, and we just need to watch out. Sometimes at 50% levels, markets can go sideways quite a lot. It's a real bull bear fight level, profit taking for some, and just as you know, people are getting really interested about buying it. So looking for more upside, but we really need to close and hold above 13.22 in INJ. Link, of course, has been a favorite for a while. Let's take a look at where we are in Link, and this is another one here on the weekly where it's a pretty big deal level. Now in Link, I've drawn my fib levels from the all-time lows here, 2018, to the highs that we made in 2021. And this made a very good long-term bottom here at the 886 fib level. When you reverse at an 886 fib level, you need to close above the 786 fib, and then your target, first target, is the 50%, sorry, which is here at 26.5. Reversals at an 886, which confirm, usually go back to the 50%. So this 11.44 level that we're sideways at becomes really important. We need to break and hold above it. And the market knows it's really important. Look at this. We have spent 7 days creeping above it and not closing above it. Now, what's cool about this is not a bearish reversal, but it does kind of point to a little bit of maybe a sideways range consolidation before we go high. If we were to pull back to the daily 20 moving average, it would be this low of the consolidation, and that would point to around 9.6. So if you're looking for a pullback to buy some, I'm not sure that we'll come back much further than 9.6. But that's what I would be looking for. In fact, if we closed underneath this daily 20 moving average, which usually works pretty well in Link, I would say a bigger pullback coming, watch out. But yeah, a break and hold above 11.44 would also be a long entry and target up at 26.5 then. Here's one I haven't looked at for a very long time, PYR. We're looking at PYR against Tether. Now this looks like Link did before Link broke out, doesn't it? Sideways consolidation, really cool, interesting sideways range. So when you bounce off the bottom of a sideways range, your first target is always the top of the range, and then you see kind of what's going to happen there. So we're not there yet, and you know, these sideways ranges, you buy the lows, buy pullbacks, keep knocking on the door until you get your breakout of the range. Now, where would we go if we broke out from here? I'm going to take as fibs the most recent swing rather than, you know, if you say, right, my 236 fib is my first pullback. If we were to do that here, that would be all the way up at 13.9. That's quite a long way. I think we need an interim target before then. So we're just going to take this most recent swing lower. So we'll keep 13.4 as our first, you know, bigger target. But I think that 6.8, which also interestingly lines up with this previous swing low, it's going to be our first target resistance level, where we may have a little bit of a pause before we continue higher. But certainly this bottoming look here is really cool. Very good look. And yeah, that's where I'd be looking for. I'm just going to put regular candles on to see what level could we not close above, and that's going to be my breakout level if we do 5. So the round number 5 is our level that we need to close above and hold above, and then 6.65 would be first kind of wobble pullback level, and then 13.44 hopefully. So PYR, really nice looking bottom pattern, isn't it? Fetch, let's take a look at Fetch. This has been a really nice outperformer. Where are we here in Fetch? Are we likely to continue higher? Let's go to the weekly. As you know, I kind of quite liked this a week ago. I love it when the moving averages hold up like this and we break out. Now for me, the first target, because this is a double bottom at a 786 fib, which confirmed above the 61.8, first target is 0.396. We're not quite there yet. We've got a room to go a little bit higher. And then that's one of those levels where I think we might see a pullback before we continue higher. And if we say, well, this is wave 1, wave 2, and we're going to see a big wave 3, not too big of a pullback, sideways consolidation, and then a big wave 5 higher, that would be also a pretty good look. So are we at one of those levels? You know, when you measure wave 1, wave 3 very often is 1.618 or 2.618 of the first swing. So here we are at that 1.618 level. So this is now, you know, if we continue higher, obviously, If we break out above 0.396, next target would be up at 0.59. But it is entirely possible, just like pretty much every other crypto I'm looking at the moment, we're very close to a level where we might see some sideways consolidation in a wave 4. And if we look at how long in terms of time and price this wave 2 took, because very often these corrections kind of, you know, hold up in terms of price and time, we can see really where our support zone is, isn't it? 0.33, and it might take us a few days or weeks before we pull back. So wait for some red to pull back towards 0.33, 0.34, and then green to go up again in Fetch. So if you've been long since all the way back, or no need to take profit, but watch out for a reversal pattern here. We may, you know, in Fetch just go sideways and then blast through this resistance level. But you know, when I look at this on the 4-hour, potentially we've got 5 waves up here, and the problem with sometimes with extended wave 5s is they can come all the way back to the previous wave 4. So yeah, let's see if we can make a new high and hold it or not in Fetch. Otherwise I'd be on watch for a bit of a pullback in this one. Let's take a look at QNT. So QNT. First off, you know, when you look at this weekly chart, it kind of looks primed for another swing higher. So if we say this is 1, 2, 3 for a first bounce, 1, 2, 3 back for a second, we should see another leg higher. The key is going to be, have we broken out from this? You know, 1, 2, 3. I think it, first off, I would like to see this being 61.8 of the first swing, which it looks like it is, so that's pretty good. One of the confirmations then we're going to be going up is back above this weekly 50 moving average, maybe back above the 236 fib from this high, which is a little bit higher. So 118 could be a little bit of a problem level, and that's also this swing high here. But yeah, this definitely looks like it's trying. The problem is if it can't break out above this weekly 50, it means that we're still in this channel and we could end up, you know, doing one of those extended equal measured moves, which I don't think it will come back and retest the lows. But it's not quite a bullish reversal. Now on the daily, it's a little bit kind of better looking, because this daily 200 moving average potentially could be some support for us to launch higher. Now, for me, that usually means put my Heikin-Ashi on, wait for us to make a base and turn up again. Heikin-Ashi is just basically a moving average on candles. If you didn't want to use that, put regular candles on. Look at this in terms of a trend line. Look for a breakout this way. Because yeah, this daily 200 moving average certainly could be a level that we could launch from. So I would put this here like this, put an alert on the trend line, then it tells you when it's breaking out, and next swing higher beginning hopefully. So then we would look for again that weekly 50 moving average and these previous swing highs around 112. See if we can break above them. At the moment this is just a pretty decent bounce and a downtrend. We just need to see if it can turn into a little bit more. Let's take a look at RNDR, render, one of my favorites for a while. Again, we'll go out to our weekly chart and let's take a look at where we are. Now this has had a pretty extended move. I kind of really like the look of this. I like the look of this bounce and this 3-wave pullback, so we should see another big wave higher. So this is another one, a bit like QNT that we just looked at. It needs another swing higher. And if we were to measure from this first swing. We haven't quite reached the 61.8 level, so more upside. But for me, my favorite trade setup or target is an equal measured move back to a 50% retrace. You see it so often and it works really well. So if we go high to low here, that puts us up 3.84 zone. So yeah, still looking really bullish for me in render, and we're still in buy pullbacks, but we are beginning a pullback. Now, if we look at regular candlesticks, you know, sometimes in a market that just keeps going and keeps going, and old school stock index traders will tell you, you know, when you have a one-day pullback, as long as you don't break that and it's just a one day, you keep going. And you can see all the way up from this low mid-October, that's what we saw. Only when we broke the low of a previous candle did we stop going up. So from the middle of the month, every time we have not broken the previous day's low on a close until yesterday. So that does point to a little bit of a pullback. That should also end up giving us a red high Kanashi here. So we are in a bit of a pause consolidation. And when I look at this, you know, every time we've pulled back to the 20 moving average on the daily, we've gone up again. And I think that that's what we're doing here. I do think we've got more upside to come in render. For me, it hasn't reached the first projected target, but month end, quite often, you know, although that's not such a big feature in crypto, it certainly is in Bitcoin futures, but not so much in these altcoins. So yeah, looking for a pullback and render to continue higher, 2.83 and then 3.8 next on the upside for that one. Let's take a look at SCLP. Scarlet Tether. So whenever you get a double bottom swing failure pattern or a kind of slightly higher low, that's always quite cool because you can measure the target. So this is another one that's looking like it's making big three-wave moves. So 1, 2, 3 up, 1, 2, 3 down, and potentially up again. And for the first time, we're above the weekly 20 moving average. So we should continue higher from here, and this should hold as support. The weekly 20 moving average is at 0.145. So good look. Now, if we take a look at the daily, we are at a level on the daily 200 moving average where previously we have seen a little bit of a pullback consolidation and the downtrend has continued. So that kind of gives us a pretty nice range to say which way next. So we can say back underneath this weekly 20 on a close, which is at 0.145, would be a bigger correction. Holding above it means just a pullback and we keep going higher, and then a break above and close above this daily 200 moving average next, swing higher. Because we're underneath them, technically, you know, we're really still in a choppy overlapping downtrend in this one. It's not quite a bullish reversal yet. But yeah, if we continue to launch higher here, see how previously in June and in July, the weekly 50 moving average was resistance. If we look at it where it is now, it's also a pretty important support and resistance level. So we could say if we continue higher, that's going to be our first target, which is 0.18. And above 0.18, I think we can start, yeah, and above the weekly 50, we can definitely talk about back to the top of the range and back to 0.3. But for now, that would be my first target on a bounce. And there's a bit of a level here as well. So we'll go level to level. We can say above 0.16, we're going to look for 0.18. Above 0.18, we can have a really strong move back to the top of the range. So good luck in this one. Again, sideways back and fill. Look for a little bit of a lower time frame pullback here in SLP. I wouldn't say this is bearish yet. This is quite a choppy overlapping chart. So that for me isn't kind of a enticing short. But looks good. Okay, I hope that's useful. I apologise if I didn't get it out last night.